What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Art of War. We have an exciting live stream today as we are going to be discussing all of the features of kind of how you analyze terrain when you go ahead and show up at a tournament. They tell you what the layouts, or it's a surprise what the layouts are. How do you actually look at a board and say, here's what I need to do? Here are the main factors I need to be thinking about to be able to succeed in this particular game. So outside of factors like matchup and stuff, what are the main things you're looking for in a terrain format that helps you deploy properly and set yourself up to potentially succeed in the game?
Absolutely. So terrain format's actually more important than missions to me for when you're planning for what you're going to play to an event. If a terrain format is super wide open, well, guess what? You got to play a completely different army if you expect to compete at the highest level. If it's super closed, same deal. And as we'll see in the GW pack, there are some that are super open and there are some that are super closed. So you need to know if your tournament publishes a player pack, they'll often say which rounds we played on which tables, which layouts, and you can analyze and say, oh, they're using, 2, 4, and 6. It's going to be pretty open. Better plan around that. Or it's going to be 1, 7, and 8. It's going to be pretty closed. Better plan around that.
Absolutely. Terrain, for me, just like for Jack, I think is one of the most important considerations when you're designing your list, when you're deciding what you're going to prioritize, and then how you actually play your army on those different boards. Sometimes you are playing on a lighter board with a combat army. Well, guess what? You're going to have to use reserves, rapid ingress, etc. more often than you might normally because you don't have those staging points that we'll talk about here. So we're going to look at a couple of the different GW layouts and kind of give our overall thoughts and kind of prep work that goes into preparing for an event based on terrain. And if you are joining us, please do give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell your friends about us. All of that massively helps us grow. In addition, if you want to see some awesome games, as well as plenty of other awesome video content, check out The Worm at theworm.vhx.tv. There's a 3-day free trial. And on top of that, you're also going to get access to our international Discord community that has a lot of top-level players and faction experts for every army in the game. So if you want a community of like-minded people, it's the best place to join and start.
Yeah, as people in the chat have noticed, I am a ghost today. Unfortunately, I decided today would be a sick time to show off my green shirt.
Jack loves green.
Green's a fun color. So I went to my car and I pulled out a coat, and that is how you can now, my corporeal brethren, see me.
Jack is barely floating right next to me.
That's right. I'm actually dead. I've been dead for quite some time, and I just come back to haunt the land of the living.
Yeah, this is the ephemeral tome.
That's right.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and dive in here and kind of look at some of our layouts. And of course, we're going to start at one that's pretty popular overall. It's going to be Layout 1 on the Games Workshop format. And so for me personally, one of the main things that's going to be critical as somebody who loves shooting, Jack, is firing lanes. When you analyze a board, you're going to look at how many long firing angles are there down boards. Some boards a lot more closed, some boards a lot more open. So if we look down this one, there's nothing going this way. Nope. Nothing down the long side, so it's completely covered there. But there is a nice long one going down this way. There's one, if you step out of the front of your ruin, you can go down there. From this angle, it goes right there. From here, it goes across this way, basically, right into the middle of that zone. And then if you step past this, there's some firing lanes up into here if you're able to get some reserve threats. But by and large, there's not a lot of cross-court angles. There's a very long one down this way, but it doesn't go fully past, and then same thing, there's one down here. So there's not as many shooting lanes as you would normally have on some of the lighter boards, which means if you have 2 main shooting areas, you really only need 2, 3 shooting pieces to be able to dominate those lanes.
Yeah, the number one thing to look at, and we've talked about this a lot if you watch Jack Theory over at the War Room, like a lot, because it is very important. The number one thing to notice when you're looking at terrain formats is you want to look at staging points and firing lanes, right? And the big ones, as Richard pointed out, firing lanes are any long unobstructed lines of sight, right? So like that right there, as Richard was pointing out, or this, right? There are not as many on this. What you want to look for when you're analyzing a terrain format is how many and how long are the lines of sight? How many are there and how long are they? Typically, GW tends to have fewer lines of sight, but they are longer, and WTC tends to have more, but they are shorter, right? So shooting armies at shorter range tend to work better on WTC as a trend, and then longer range pieces tend to find a little bit more of a home on GW, because GW tends to have fewer terrain features, but they're bigger.
Yeah, for instance, let's think about the World Eater's Forge Fiend, for example.
Yes.
That thing shoots hellaciously hard at 18 inches.
It does shoot very, very hard.
It loves to be able to just step past a ruin, and anything in that middle area is able to be, accessed. But your opponent, to shoot back at the Forge Fiend, has to also come into the middle area of the board. Here, for the Forge Fiend, for the most part, if it wants to, say, like interact on this firing lane, well, if your opponent has anything long going this way, they're going to be able to interact with it. Let's just say the Forge Fiend is kind of sitting over here or something like that. If your opponent has 48-inch range guns and just sits on this terrain plate, they're dominating this entire angle, whereas the Forge Fiend's effective, range 18, where it actually does a lot of damage, it's mostly in this area over here. So it's going to get severely outranged. So what is it going to have to do? Well, it's going to have to like peek out here and get narrow angles this way. Maybe it's going to sit, right here and then draw line of sight maybe into the narrow edge of, something that's in the middle of the table. It can't really get into a firefight here. So if, for instance, I was running maybe like Iron Striders and AdMech, because I have the extra range, I'm going to be able to dominate these two lanes much more so than somebody who has 18, 24-inch range guns that are devastating but shorter.
Exactly. So the second thing you want to look at is you want to look at the staging points. Staging points are anywhere on the board you can stash a unit before using it. Typically melee, but sometimes shooting. Typically, it's where you can stash a melee unit where it can be effective, it can affect the course of the game, but your opponent can't easily access it. So something like that would be, for example, like this spot right here, right? That spot right here and the spot directly behind the plate are fantastic staging areas. So your goal here, as an example, is to look at how defensible are the staging areas, right? How hard is it for my opponent to attack it? And how close is it to usable areas on the board? So this is just a guide, right? When you're looking at the board, if there are a lot of very powerful staging areas, that typically tends to tilt me towards melee. If there's a lot of very long, very powerful lines of sight, it tends to push me towards shooting, things like that.
Absolutely.
Layout 1 is a very defensive map. It's a little deceptive in how good the shooting lanes are because there actually are some very powerful ones here, right? I've done a detailed breakdown of every single map in detail as part of a Jack theory. I think I talked for like an hour and a half about them all combined to break it up over a couple ones. You can go check that out if you want in the War Room. But generally, the lines of sight here are quite powerful, right? The one down the center looking through the center objective, the one down here controlling space above the objective, and then your ability to pop through here and shoot down this way does control a lot of usable space. And then there's this staging area right here, which is your one bastion against that, basically, and you essentially use that to push back staging areas and attack your opponents.
100%.
So it is fairly defensive. It's kind of difficult to push into the staging ruin right here.
Yep.
But you can still control a lot of the board with shooting units.
Yeah, and if you look at, if your opponent, for instance, wants to stage down here to be able to attack where you're, like, say it's a tipping point or crucible, the objective is going to be basically in this area over here. As long as you have some amount of guns that can interact with this, they have to stage much farther back, either in here or they have to be in here to be able to attack that spot. So this is where the combination of guns plus combat can force your opponent farther back, allowing you to actually effectively stage on them.
Yep. The last thing you want to take a look at is like a big top overview look at a terrain format. How many of the objectives are behind line of sight blocking terrain? It's a big one. Quite often, the center objective will not be, especially on GW terrain. The center objective is in the open, right? It's going to be here. Or if we scroll down, it's going to be, roughly there. Or we scroll down, it's going to be roughly there, right? It's going to be in the open basically all the time. But the side ruins, your expansion and your opponent's expansion, which are it's the slang term for the objective directly above your deployment zone. A little bit easier for you to control than your opponent. Those quite often will be behind line of sight blocking terrain. So if you play this on search and destroy deployment, you're going to be seeing your objective behind terrain there. But if you play on the other ones, you're going to see it a little bit more in the open, right? You're going to see it something like this, where you can kind of hide a model here behind line of sight blocking terrain.
Barely.
But you can hide one generally, and that's about it. Anything else, your opponent has to come forward and do it. So that dynamic of this objective is largely in the open, does inform a lot of how this terrain layout plays, because it's just hard to hold your objectives behind line of sight blocking terrain. Now, something like maybe this a little bit more, Basically, the more you get towards the bottom, the easier of the pack, the easier it is for you to hold objectives. Because like this position, super powerful, very hard to disrupt. Let me adjust this a little bit. Right? Here we go. If you want to out, there we go. There we are. This spot right here, super powerful, super easy to defend, and that should tilt you more towards melee because the shooting unit's not going to dig your opponent out of that. No, not really. You need a melee threat to run in there and really dislodge that section of the board.
Absolutely. So in terms of, let's say, some of the other factors that are a little more subtle than firing angles and staging points, if we go right back to layout 1 just real quickly, one of the subtle things about it is that there's a huge amount of depth in the back of your deployment zone. What some armies, especially elite armies, they don't have a lot of cheap units. They don't have like a lot of 10-man units or like garbage 65 unit that can just string out. Like 10 cultists is an amazing backfield screen because for very cheaply, it stops your opponent from ever going back there. But if we look at kind of what's going on over here, this is a huge expanse. To actually stop somebody from getting 9 inches away in your backfield, you can't just have models blocking this and standing on the objective. They will arrive back here, they will shoot your unit away, take your objective away, and you're going to have a bad time. So something like, 10 cultists or 10 Zangors or whatever is going to be vital on this. If you only have a 5 model unit, well, it's like back here. It's kind of chilling all the way back here. It's not blocking this U-shape, stopping your opponent from charging into it on Games Workshop format. And same thing, with a 10 model unit, you can go like this, and you can string all the way up here, and then one thing has to be up in this corner to block your opponent from going in your back half.
Yeah, something I've noticed, if you play World Eaters, basically, the issue is that 10 Jackals is not enough to screen out your whole backfield. You need something else. Because 10 Jackals can basically make a line like this where you tap the objective. Even if you stretch that a little bit more, your opponent's still going to have space to rapid ingress right up here. I actually won a game in the mirror because my opponent only had 1 squad of Jackals and nothing else to screen. And I got to rapid ingress back here because he had to send all his resources forward.
What, are you going to leave a combat unit back there?
Yes. So a unit of Exalted ran over here, killed that, took his home objective for the entire game, and that was that. Right? So you need something else to screen out back here so that your opponent can't get in behind you. You only need a single model in World Eaters, right? Because you only need a model right here, and suddenly it's screened out, and you're all set. So a lot of the time in the past, you can have that be a solo Master of Executions, you can have that be a solo Slaughterbound, something like that, but you need something, right? You need something to go up there.
Yeah, and Chad is mentioning Lone Ops. So Lone Ops is one of the answers to the problem of, oops, my objective is out in the open. At the very least, your opponent, if they're interacting with a Lone Op on this objective, is going to have to get within 12 inches of you. And if they're going to get within 12 inches of you, they can easily be charged, and or you can shoot their unit back in return. I would say Lone Ops is one of the most powerful things to actually be able to dominate this area over here. So your opponent's expansion, if you stage a melee unit, like I said, they should shoot you across here. But if you have something like Mandrakes or like a Ghost Keel from Tau, you can stage right here and very easily attack their expansion objective and at the same time force them to have to send something out into the open to interact with that. Yeah. So Lone Ops can be a really powerful tool, whether Mandrakes, Ghost Keels, whatever you have.
Yeah, for sure. So in general, what you want to do is you want to find the balance. You want to see how big and how open are the firing lanes and how many objectives do they control? If the answer is none of them, play melee. Just do it. You'll feel very nice about that.
Your guns will feel like they're not playing the game in those scenarios.
Your guns only get to shoot when your opponent comes out into the open, generally. And if there's nothing relevant in the open, that's just not going to happen very often. So there are a lot of lines of sight that control objectives, consider playing more shooting or consider playing more Lone Ops or ways to draw your opponent forward, because being able to interact with an open table is doable for most armies, but it does tilt towards the shooting armies and it does reward you planning around that. So if you are playing on a very open board,
let's go to the Dawn of War.
I was going to say layout 4, right?
Yeah, layout 4
I've seen this. Layout 4. Let me, I'll give an example
this was at LVO.
Of a terrain pack where you can analyze it and figure it out ahead of time. LVO. LVO's terrain pack was layout 1, layout 4, layout 6. Layout 4 and layout 6, if we look at them, layout 6 is like a slightly fixed version of layout 4. So it's very similar.
It's the better version.
It's the better version for sure. There is so much open space on this board, it's actually crazy. If we look at how defensive the objectives are, right? There's one generally that goes like about here and then one that goes about here. Well, they're not really at all. You can just kind of shoot onto the objectives from the outside. And the firing lanes are infinite. Look at this. What is that? What is that?
I mean, look at this one.
Look at this one, right? Because you step onto the plate here and you just shoot down through the center. The firing lanes are bananas, right? There's this. Just even moving up the board is like functionally impossible. Like the firing lane here cuts off basically everything. This is ridiculous, man. You step onto the plate, you get seen down here. This is what Europeans think Americans play on all the time.
This is the Tau board.
This
Tau
is
heaven.
like, oops, our TO doesn't actually understand what terrain formats are, so they picked layout 4. Layout 4 is dumb, man. Like, look at this. This is all in the open. It's just... All right, layout 6 is better, but not by a lot, right? By like a little bit. And then layout 1 theoretically is very dense, right? Because you have all these staging ruins and like, oh, this is grand. I'm having a ball here. But if we look at the actual missions, they picked all hammer and anvil, so every objective is basically in the open. And so you'll never guess which armies did well at LVO. Shooting. Guns.
Or you have infinite bodies.
Or both.
Or both.
Or both. There was not a single melee army that made top 8. And that's why. Yeah, it was a full day of layout 1 hammer and anvil, which layout 1 hammer and anvil is cancerous for melee because you need to sacrifice 3 units a turn every turn to control these objectives, and your opponent can just blow you off them. So it was, I mean, if you want to see an example of that, you can check out Durante Bazzini versus Derek Apshay, where Derek essentially had lost from the moment the game started.
War Games Live.
Yep.
One thing that's interesting there that you pointed out is the dominance of like body gun armies versus if we go to UKTC, if we look, it was largely combat armies towards the top of the meta because they have very large L shapes in the middle. Now there's a lot of firing lanes on those boards, but if you get the tempo with a melee army and you're too deep in their half of the board and the pressure's all in their corner, you just can't get out of it.
Yeah, if they're only solving the problems that are directly in front of them, and then the staging, the second wave is just going to crash into them, there's nothing they can do about that, then life gets rough for them, for sure. So it was an entire day of layout 1, hammer and anvil, all objectives in the open. So just like what Durante did, basically, he was like, all right, trash here, trash here, trash here.
Piranhas, baby.
Send 3 units forward, and Derek did, and then Durante killed them, and then put more units out. And there was nothing Derek could have done. Derek could have been, the second coming of 40k Jesus, and it would not have made a difference, right? So there's that. And then it was an entire day of nothing but layout 4, which sounds horrific. Just all layout 4, and then it was all layout 6, which was like a slightly better version of layout 4. And so, again, you will never guess. All shooting armies.
You love guns. Teleporting guns, Deathwatch making the finals again.
Deathwatch making the finals, not surprising, right? Good army, solid army, and can teleport around with guns.
Now, if you are on one of these lighter boards, like Layout 5 is another one. This is a Dawn of War board, so once again, the objectives are literally in the center, across the center line. What you have to do in these scenarios is, number 1, not let your opponent take a quarter of the board from you. You have to make sure that your opponent doesn't take half of, like, if they take 3/4 of the board, they will be pushing into your home area and you will lose that game. If somebody can get the L shape created where they control 3 of the 4 quarters, they're going to have a big advantage. So you have to be able to screen both flanks. In addition, you want to be able to heavily use reserves in these type of scenarios so that you're not the first one to get alpha struck. It's totally okay to take a turn off, let your opponent get onto the objectives, and still get the first hit off on them. It's completely fine. The only thing you have to watch out for when you go reserve heavy is if your opponent is fast enough with scout moves, infiltrate units to be able to stop you from coming in the first place, or at least you come in literally on your backboard edge. So those are definitely big considerations here, but for a board like Layout 5, it's often advantageous, even going first, to simply take a turn off of interacting with objectives and wait for a big push turn where you overwhelm your opponent with options rather than trading. Oh, I'm going to trade the first 3 things. Okay, my opponent killed them. I'm going to trade the next 3 things. Okay, my opponent killed them. I've run out of things to trade that are relevant. So either I put my key units out there and they die, or I stop playing the objectives, in which case I threw away 6 units for no reason.
Yep.
I see this a lot. People just start putting stuff on objectives, not really realizing that tempo can matter a lot more than that.
Yep. So if we look at layout 5, right?
Yep.
This one here, this layout is characterized by very strong lines of sight, right? Very, very powerful firing units here. Like, what are we doing, man? Very strong lines of sight and very weak staging ruins. Because you can go here, but that can get seen from around the side without your opponent even leaving their half of the board. You can go like here, but kind of same deal. Your opponent can shoot you from over here. So very weak staging ruins, very strong lines of sight. This is going to favor shooting armies quite heavily. Something like layout 6, which is a fixed version of layout 4, still has very powerful lines of sight. There's this one here that draws entirely through the center. And then this one, very, very strong crossfire, as well as the sides being open. Very powerful lines of sight, but slightly stronger staging ruins. This one here is very powerful. This position here is okay. And then on the objective is like a tiny little foothold. Okay staging ruins, so slightly better, but still shooting favored. If we go down to like layout 8, which I would say is the most melee favored of them all, i.e. my favorite, incredibly strong staging area. This is like impossible to attack, basically, unless you want to charge it. And even then, you can set up a little trap there. Then you have a great staging point here and a decent staging point here.
Yep.
So very powerful staging points and very weak lines of sight. We just have the one, basically. And then there's like...
If you're in the literal middle of the table.
Yeah, there's like a control some of the board, but very, very powerful lines of... very, very powerful staging ruins. This one favors melee.
Yep.
Quite a bit.
Because if you remember back to what we mentioned, if the shooting units to shoot have to get up here, they are easily hit. They're easily interacted with. It's not shooting cross-court. If they're shooting from back here, all of a sudden, melee units really aren't threatening to hit them, and so you're getting into a gun versus gun battle, which you may or may not be able to do. But here, if I'm going to shoot across at whatever Jack has staged against my objective here, well, anything he has here is going to easily hit it. So the close, even if there are long firing angles cross-court, if there's a staging ruin really close to where you need to fire to be able to shoot your opponent, they're just going to charge you.
If
so
you
it's
want
dangerous.
An incredibly detailed breakdown of every single terrain layout and how you should play on it and the different dynamics, I would check out Jack Theory.
Yeah.
I have a 2-parter series on that.
It's like 2+ hours.
I think it's like 50 minutes per half, and I do 1 through 4 and then 5 through 8. I'm very proud of it. So if you want to go check it out, like if you're going to an event that's using GW terrain, you're like, wow, we're doing 1, 4, and 7, right? Like learn about the different terrain formats and how the dynamic of the game progresses on those terrain formats. Go check that out.
100%.
And I also agree with Mr. Alejandro Mancuso and make layout 8 standard. Only layout 8 all the time.
You love layout
Raise
4.
up.
You love layout 4.
Bless up. No, I do not.
All right. So that's kind of our summary of when you go in, you're looking at a terrain format, what you need to do, and kind of the main factors. There's a lot of newer people joining right now because guess what? Warhammer's in the best spot it has been all edition, in my opinion. I think what Games Workshop has done over the past couple months has really kind of tightened the game. Everybody has codexes now, and overall there's a lot of diverse play styles right now. You have counter meta, horde builds. You've got still some tank spam type of armies, and then back kind of in the driver's seat are the control armies, the trading resources, combat armies, etc.
Yeah.
So it's a really good place, and a lot of new people are joining. So if you are one of those people and kind of are struggling with how do I analyze the terrain that I'm playing on and adjust accordingly, you must adjust accordingly. You have to. Terrain is going to be one of the single most important factors when you're determining what your list is going to be, and also how you actually play it on the tabletop.
I would let my opponent choose the mission if I got to choose the terrain. 100%. Not even close.
Yeah, for sure. Even what is it? What's the servo skulls called now?
Unexploded ordnance.
Yeah, unexploded ordnance.
I don't think it's in the pack anymore.
No,
actually,
they removed it from the pack. But it used to be in there.
It used to be the semifinals of a GW Open that I had to play on. I was going second on servo skulls on table quarters in the semifinals of a GW Open, and I managed to still win.
It used to be in the shadow rounds of some events.
It did. John had to play it in the shadow round of WCW. It was so stupid. It was so stupid.
All right. Well, we got a bunch of super chats here. If anybody does have any questions, we're going to go ahead and go through them and answer them now. So we have Scott Nagao. Thanks so much for your $5 super chat. He says the Jack Snack Fund will be able to get Jack a non-green shirt at some point in the future.
I was like, wow, I haven't worn this shirt in a while. I should wear this. This is cool. And I forgot why I hadn't worn it in a while, which is I turn into Ghost. I am invisible. You cannot see me.
Then we have Ricky Chow here, member for 13 months at the bronze tier. Thank you so much, Ricky. Stand up, Jack. Show off your new optic camo.
I'll do a little.
I think we need to
that maybe. Look at Bucky. All right, there he is. He's in the sun.
We should rename Gon's Ghost to Jack's Ghost.
That's right. Well, they'd have super stealth. They'd be like Lone Op 18 at least.
Well, they have Fight First too. You would like that.
I would.
Then we have
my favorite time to fight is first.
First. Renau Kint, thanks so much for joining at the War and Bronze. If you are one of the members who are joining us, make sure that you log into your Discord account, go to user settings, click connections, and then click the YouTube icon, and then sync your accounts. That'll let you automatically join our Art of War Discord without having to do a bunch of stuff. Make sure you accept the rules, and then go and choose your faction channels.
Absolutely.
All right. It doesn't look to be too many other questions here, but if you do have any questions for us, please do leave them in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Like Jack was mentioning, he's done a deep dive on the different terrain layouts and how to think about them, how to play on them. We've also done a variety of other strategy sessions related to some of the different terrain formats, and then Mr. Nick Nanavati has gone ahead and done a full mission series for all the different chapter-approved 2025-2026 missions, which also talk about the terrain and how it influences some of the different missions. Like Jack was mentioning, the Hammer and Anvil board is very different from Search and Destroy for a lot of reasons.
Yep.
So if you are curious about that, definitely check out The Worm at theworm.vhx.tv. There's a 3-day free trial, and on top of that, you get access to our awesome international Discord community where there are faction channels for everybody, and there's a lot of experts all across there, and so we hope to see you joining. We've got Alejandro Martin also joining at The War Room Silver. Thank you so much for joining The War Room, and once again, make sure you sync your account so you get access to the Discord. And then Jabari here with a $5 super chat. Are you liking Cataphan Destroyers in Halo Screed right now? It is the best that unit has ever been, in my opinion. Like, since I've started playing competitively in 8th edition, Destroyers, especially Cataphrons, have been pretty damn mediocre. They've always had some weird inability to move around terrain or, stuff like that. Giant bases. But right now, they have access to full rerolls to hit. And they were very much overshadowed by their brothers, the Breachers, who, if they were near battle line, got full rerolls to hit and had a better weapon. Now their range output, as well as they're significantly cheaper than Breachers, and then in Halo Screed, you can crit 5s them, you can fall back, shoot, and charge with them. You can also get an enhancement to reroll hazardous tests, so you don't just kill your unit over time. I honestly think it's quite a solid unit. Is it top-tier competitive? I haven't found a way to squeeze it into my list where I'm happy with what I'm cutting, but I do believe if you like Destroyers, this is the most competitive they've ever been, and they are actually a good unit.
Absolutely. It's good to see those guys on the table because I've only ever seen the Breachers, basically.
Yeah. the Destroyers, their data sheet rule, instead of getting access to reroll 1s to hit OAs and full rerolls to hit if you're within 6 of battle line, their rule is Overwatch on 5s.
Wow. Don't you get isn't full rerolls to hit, better than that?
Yeah, significantly.
Even on Overwatch?
Yes. Now that Call gives full rerolls, though, he basically allows you to use Cataphrons for significantly cheaper to still do a good amount of ranged output. And the Cataphron Destroyers are a little bit safer because they can go to 42-inch range with that enhancement, which is a lot better than being within 15 to get your Breacher shots.
That is true. That is a lot. That is very true.
Is the October coaching going to be in the War Room, the AdMech one? Yes, it is. It is. I did the first session on Monday. The second session is coming up. There's a couple more tickets that you can find on the artofwar40k.com/shop if you're still looking to get one. And it is hosted in the War Room Discord. There's a special stages channel for the members who sign up for it.
It is hosted in the War Room, but that does not a War Room membership does not get you.
Yeah, the coaching is separate.
Coaching is separate.
If you want to check it out, it's theartofwar40k.com/shop, and if you scroll down, there's 5 or 6 active right now. Jack is doing World Eaters, John is doing Emperor's Children, Michael is doing Orcs right now, and Nick is about to do Aldari, and Skari is about to do Drukari. So a lot of options coming up.
Yeah,
yep, a lot of good armies. So if you're interested, the AdMech one, like I said, it's hype. I'm prepping AdMech a lot because I plan to play them at the World Championships coming up in November. So if you want all my latest thoughts, that's definitely the best place to get it. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Once again, Give us a like, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about us, and leave a comment below letting us know what you think about the different terrain formats out there and how you analyze the different formats. So thanks so much, everybody, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye-bye.
So long for now. Whoops.